Welcome back to the McCoy Leadership Podcast, elevating your impact through valuable insights and conversations about leadership. Welcome back to another episode of the McCoy Leadership Podcast. Today we have Ron Reich here with us. Ron has been in the leadership and management development and coaching world for over 28 years. Ron is currently the president of RLB Training and Development, and he works around the country working with leaders and companies on bringing them and their organizations through change and through leadership development. Ron, I'll kick it over to you and let you introduce yourself a little bit better.
Oh, Amos, thank you. First of all, it's good to be here. I am truly so blessed to be able to do what I do. I am absolutely passionate about helping organizations and helping people just be their best through education, training, and coaching. And that includes leadership development, management development, working with individual contributors, doing culture development for organizations, just all these different things. And I've been doing it for a long time. It is my calling. And I am, like I said, I just repeat myself. I love this. I just absolutely love it.
That is awesome. And, all of us in the coaching and leadership world, I think we all love what we do. And at the end of the day, being able to do your dream job every day, day in and day out. And that doesn't mean there aren't tough days. We all have tough days, but being able to do that, I think, is what makes us so passionate. And, it sounds like you definitely have that passion for getting through to folks and teaching them something new, helping them achieve their goals.
That's exactly right.
So as we talked ahead of time, we talked a little bit about talking about time management today, which is kind of interesting because at the end of the day, we all know that there's 24 hours in a day. I've been known to say that I can get 26 hours out of a 24-hour day, but we all know that's not true. But over and over and over again, I hear complaints about people saying, I just can't get done what I'd like to get done in a day. What, out of that, what are some of your just initial thoughts when somebody comes up to you and says, when I open my calendar on Monday morning, I go into panic mode? What would you say to that person?
My question with that always is to people, I am so busy. I have so much to do. Oh my goodness, how am I ever? My first question always is just very simply, doing what? What is it you're doing? And you made the comment, Amos, before the show started. Are you busy or are you effective? Because there's an enormous difference, just an enormous difference. And that's the key. That's the key. I mean, obviously people need to be, I would hope, want to be effective and not just busy.
So let's say you run into somebody and they understand task. They understand the difference between an appointment and a task. They understand maybe they're using, which I think we mentioned in an earlier podcast, maybe they're using something like the Eisenhower method to lay out so they understand what's important. But then they still say, there's just not enough time in a day. I want to get all of this done and I can't seem to get it done. Well, what would be your thoughts to that person?
You mentioned Stephen Covey again just a little bit before the show, and I am a big believer in his work as well. And the one thing for me that has helped me over the years, and a lot of my clients, a lot of people have said too, is very simply scheduling the big rocks first. What are your highest priorities? Get that on your calendar and make sure those get done first. And then you've got to make sure you've got to have the discipline, You've got to have the courage at certain times to tell people, no, I'm sorry. I don't have time for you right now. No, I can't come into this meeting. No, I don't have 5 minutes for you right now. I'm working on something that I owe my boss in an hour, whatever it might be, is the ability to say no and just the ability to continue to work on the highest priority tasks, whatever it might be that needs to get done in the moment and not get distracted from that. I was a classic with that. Just classic. I mean, I love the term that the Covey people, the two terms the Covey people have used over the years for this. You can get distracted easily, and it can also be deceptive. In other words, I'm so busy. Except again, doing what? Well, I'm making hotel reservations for the trip that I have in 3 weeks right now. Is that really the most important thing you need to be doing right now? And one of the reasons I'm bringing that up, I need to make hotel reservations. And truly though, I mean, I looked at my to-do list yesterday because I am very, very busy right now. And as I looked at the list, I had 7 or 8 things on the list. And just looking, and it's like, okay, what are the top things here that absolutely need to get done today, Monday? Went through it, and I was like, okay, things are getting done. And now today, Tuesday, looking at my list, there are some things there that aren't quite as high priority, except they still need to get done today. Okay, take care of them. I got one big thing done this morning, and I had some business errands to run. I needed to go pick some copies up. I needed to take care of a couple of other things at the bank, and boom, got that done without being overwhelmed. Yesterday, I was like, I got to get to the bank. And when am I going to pick up these copies? Like, I don't have to worry about it. That's tomorrow. I'm going to get the slides done that I need today. I'm going to get my notes done. I've got to call my client, and just the top priority things are getting done. And that's the key.
That makes sense, although I will say that in 2 weeks and 6 days, those hotel reservations are going to become very important to have. So as a segue, I think that just kind of leads itself into kind of another thought or another question. And so can you go too far? All right, I'm not thinking about, I have some extra time right now. I could get some things done that will alleviate tomorrow or next week or the following week. And
Absolutely.
I need to get gas today. That's not top of my priority list in the morning when I still have 3/4 of a tank. But by mid-afternoon, when I'm on E, it becomes a pretty high priority.
Amos, I don't know if you're reading my mind or not. only because I'm leaving for Washington, D.C. tomorrow, and my car had half a tank. And one of the things I wanted to do today, get gas. Just make sure you get gas, because if I don't, I start out and I'm going to have to stop sooner than I really want to in order to get gas. Now, is that a huge priority? No, it's not, except I had the time to do it. It's not going to interfere with any other high priority things that I'm doing today. So let me take care of it. I have, and again, just as an example, when we finish chatting today, I have some classes, I have some sessions coming up in December, and I need to get my flip charts done and just do some other preparation work. I don't have anything else major to do today. That's probably what I will do for the rest of the day. That way, it started. And again, as things come up in December, oh my goodness, I didn't start these flip charts yet. I've got to get that done. And now this client needs me, and just all these other things. So yeah, I will start working ahead without a doubt. as long as, again, I circle back, all of the highest priority things are done.
Now, many times in my life, I will sit down and make that list. I know what my priorities are to get done today, but 3/4 of the way, halfway through the day, somebody picks up the phone and calls me, and all of a sudden, I have a new item that has to be done that is a high priority.
Mm-hmm.
How do you handle, from a time management standpoint, allowing time for those things and not getting yourself to the point where that's going to put you behind?
I am a big believer in contingency planning and the what if. And what I like to do, I will make sure that I start working on a high priority item even before it is a real high priority, if that makes sense or not.
Yeah.
And I give myself some leeway for that exact reason that you're just saying. That exact reason. If something comes up and it's a real high priority and I need to put what I'm doing aside, it's okay. It's okay. There's no crisis here because I built time in. I planned for that. And that is one of the keys, just for me at least. And I love that. It reduces my stress level. And we were kind of talking about this too before the show. That way, I'm not stressed. I don't do real well in that kind of situation. Can I get things done under pressure? Of course I can. It's not my preference at all. Some people thrive on that. I don't. My strong preference, yes, let me take my time. Everything's fine. All is well. And again, if something comes up that I need to take care of, okay, it's fine. No big deal.
So how do you get through to the person that says, to your point, I thrive on this and I'm just going to wait until the last minute because I know I'll do my best work when I'm under extreme pressure? I would argue that I don't think that's necessarily still the best way to utilize your time. But when somebody comes and tells us that, how would you talk with them about still thinking about creating better planning?
My response to that has always been, I can't tell anybody what to do. And one of the most important things for anybody, whether we're talking about using your time effectively, emotional intelligence tying in here as well, get to know yourself extremely well. Just get to know yourself. And if that is indeed the case, and you do your best work under pressure, so be it. As long as you're comfortable with that and realizing, just as a contingency, if something comes up and you need to work until midnight in order to be ready to do your presentation tomorrow, and you're comfortable with that, okay. An old boss of mine, Joe was very much like that. He could walk into a classroom to do a class. We used to start our sessions at 8:00. Now he would prepare in advance. He would look at the material a little bit. My point though, he would walk into that room at 5 minutes of 8. He would run down, grab a cup of tea, and walk in and start. I can't do that. That's not me. I want to get there and just make sure all is well. I said to you, I'm going to Washington, D.C. tomorrow. I'm doing an American Management Association class Thursday and Friday. I'm going to leave tomorrow around, I don't know, 9:15, whatever it is. It's about a 4-hour drive. So I'll get down there for argument's sake, 1:15, 1:30. I've already been in touch with the center manager who I know and have asked him, Jasper, is the room available for me tomorrow to come in, put my flip charts up and just get set up and just, things along those lines? Yes, Ron, come on in. Good, thank you. It saves me the time, the stress, and everything else of getting up at the crack of dawn on Thursday and getting in there and setting up. I want to be relaxed. And as the participants come in, my goal always is to be ready, to be relaxed, and to be able to chat with them a little bit instead of, oh, can you give me 10 minutes? I'm still setting up.
Yep.
And again, that's me. I know myself.
So interestingly, those folks that work much better under pressure, I don't know where I heard this, but, I think they've missed their calling. They should have been, doctors, emergency room doctors, or police officers or something of that nature, because the truth be told, when you do start to think about DISC and some of those other things and fitting those things in, we need those people that operate that way, because they serve many specific roles within our businesses and also in society. But getting to know yourself, to your point, there are all kinds of tools out there, but I think everybody should do some self-exploration, whether that be through DISC or some other method, so they understand, one, how they think, how they communicate, how they like to be communicated to, and having that understanding could tremendously help you, I would think, with time management.
Right. That's exactly right. I am, you've probably picked up on this based on our conversation so far. I'm a very strong C, conscientious from the DISC. And I know that about myself. I'm comfortable with that. And for me, the pressure doesn't really come to me all that much, because I've already thought about a lot of different scenarios that could come up. And what I mean by that, simply, let me back up. No, actually, we'll do it tomorrow. I can still use the same class. When we start this class on Thursday, we're scheduled to have 5 people. It's very, very small. I've already thought through all of the activities. Okay, if all 5 of them show up, when we break into small groups, how are we going to do this? I'll put three over here, 2 over here, and maybe I'll join them as well. We'll see how it's going, just so we can have a equal number of people and so forth. Now, and this is all self-talk. When we get to the delegation activity, how am I going to do that? Okay, I'll do 2, and we have 4 groups, 2, 1, 1, and 1. That will work. And then I also think about, okay, what am I going to do if only 4 people show up? Then how am I going to configure? What about 3? And those sorts of things. So if it happens, I'm ready.
Yep.
I'm ready.
So now, just for conversation's sake, I'm a DC, so I'm very task-oriented and really often don't think about people. And that is very true about myself. I often, put the task and completion of that task or project ahead of the people, and that's just something that I understand that about myself, and I have to think through that. But leading into, you mentioned emotional intelligence. How does emotional intelligence play a role into effective time management? Those are 2 things that we not necessarily would normally put together. How do you think emotional intelligence ties into time management?
For me, it's all about knowing yourself really, really well. Knowing, again, just what we were talking about. What are my strengths? What are my limitations? I am a very meticulous planner. Wonderful. And those are some of the things that I do well. That's how I use my time. And I think being emotionally intelligent, for me, I also need to be aware other people do things differently than I do. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Who am I to tell you? You should be preparing more. You should get here earlier. Whatever it might be. It's like, no, as long as the job is getting done, so be it. So be it. And that, again, that we're not under a tremendous amount of stress or pressure, whatever it might be. Because, again, just realizing everybody is different.
I often say that people are different, but they're predictably different. That's one thing when you think about people in general. We're all different, but we're predictably different.
I like that.
So you've kind of, I think the biggest point that I've gotten out of all of this is, one, it is important to understand yourself and how you work, how you operate, and then build your time management system around that. What do you see as the biggest pitfalls that people make when they make the decision that, all right, I got to do something. I'm going to create a system. I'm going to really get serious about managing my time. What are the biggest pitfalls people make when they're starting out and going down that road?
I think for me, my observation has been, and it's been my experience too, is not to allow the distractions to get in the way. I've seen that time and time again. And I used to be a big people pleaser. And I'm a work in progress. I'm getting better at it. You said you're a D and a C. I am the C and the S, the steady.
Yep.
And an old boss of mine said to me one day, you need to learn how to say no. And again, he goes, you're good at what you do. Very good. Except you're trying to please everybody all the time. And that's a problem. He said, I know, I've seen it when you've been working on something for me, working on a project that's due, whatever it might be. Somebody will come to your office, Ron, do you have a minute for me? And you never tell them, no, not right now. And you need to learn to do that. And that made sense to me. And I've seen that with so many other people who have run into the same types of situations. So I think for me, that's it.
Personally, for myself, my biggest issue is that many times I can get too busy and I think I got it. I don't need to refer to my calendar. I don't need to write it down. I'll get back to that tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the next thing you know, it's 4 days later, and you're sitting down and you realize you've double booked yourself, or you have these issues around that. And I've gotten much better at that over the years, but I still have a tendency to do that because I think I got it. And that's that D coming out. Like I got this. I don't need to write it down.
Right.
And so as I'm thinking about this and thinking about the process of time management, what comes to mind is, which we talked a little bit about, something that pops up, something that just out of the blue. And if we have good contingency plans, we can move something around. We can do what has now taken priority. But what about from a standpoint of procrastination? And as well, what I'm really thinking about are challenging type things that we have to do. We all have things that we don't like to do, that we got to do. And when you have one of those challenging things in your schedule, or maybe you have 10 of them, we tend to procrastinate. How do we get around that? How do we get ourselves to put that item in our calendar, get it done, make it happen, and stop procrastinating?
That sort of thing for me, what I like to do, get it done ASAP. To get it done as quickly as possible. And that way, just for me, psychologically, I realize, okay, I've taken care of this. It's not something that I'm fond of, or not something that I particularly enjoy doing. And as soon as I'm done with this or these two things, then I can get back to the things that I do enjoy, or the things that just make me, I'll leave it at that. Just make me happy, or however you want to phrase that. One other thing that I like too is having an accountability partner. I had a situation one time where a number of us, I'll speak for myself still, a number of us needed to talk to our boss. Things were not going well. We were not happy. And it was starting to impact things at home because I was bringing it home and I was miserable and everything else. And finally, I had said to my wife, I'm going to talk to him. And she was like, when? And I was like, this was over a weekend. I said, I'll talk to him Monday. She was like, good. Okay, fine. You have committed then, Ron. You have committed. When you come home from work, you will have spoken to him and you will tell me what happened. And I was like, and I'm backed in a corner. And I did talk to him.
I'm laughing with you because I think we've all had those types of situations. So it kind of, recapping where we're at so far, one, getting to know yourself, and understanding how you operate. Also with that, understanding that everybody operates a little bit differently and you may need to prepare your time differently than the person that's working next to you.
Yes.
Making sure that you have contingency plans put into place, that you have the ability to be able to move things around, working on things before they become, DEFCON 5, and making sure that you're kind of working. And again, back to, thinking about the Eisenhower matrix, you're working on the quadrant 2 items. And for anybody that's not familiar with the Eisenhower matrix, you can find it online. I think we have it in a past episode in show notes. You can find it there as well. But you're working in that Q2. And if you follow those steps, what are we missing so far? If we follow through on those steps, we should have better time management. But is there anything missing out of that equation?
For me, not really. I mean, I think, one of the things that needs to happen too is that I need to be accountable to myself, and I need to stay disciplined, and realize that this is working for me, or it's going to work for me. And if I start straying from it, I'm going to pay the price. We were talking about, you want to be in Q2, absolutely. With the Covey model, the Q1 for Covey are things that are, he calls it the quadrant of necessity, where there are emergencies, there are crises, there are last minute deadlines and everything like that. And it's just so simple. Spend a lot of time in there. One thing is going to happen, and I can guarantee it. You'll burn out.
Yep.
Because, if everything is a priority, nothing is a priority. And, and again, for me, I think a big part of this too, Amos, and I'll speak for myself, I spent way too much time in quadrant 1 many, many years ago. And one word is involved in that, and that word is ego. It was my ego. Is that I'll do it. Sure, I'll go to California next week. No problem. Oh, it's okay. I'm going to Florida the week after that. Don't worry about it. I can do that. It's no big deal. It just perpetuated itself. And I flamed out. Absolutely flamed out.
Yeah, in the Covey materials, they talk extensively to your point that if you stay in quadrant 1, you're going to be anxious, you're going to be burned out, and you're going to run out of energy.
Right.
There's just no two ways about it. So, in your experience, thinking about, you now have a calendar. We talked a little bit about how you communicate with those working around you. How then, if you have a certain way that you like, for instance, if you delegate something to be done to a team member that's working with you, and do you need to take time to understand how that person works and what you should expect from them? Should you get to know that person and respect their different personality and their different style? And should you use that in your planning? So if Jim likes to wait to the last minute to get something done, now that you can't expect that until 5 minutes before the deadline. And my question is, I guess, really setting up realistic expectations yourself. You set a deadline and you give that and you delegate that task. That's the easy part. But some people become anxious when it's not done a day ahead of time or 2 days ahead of time. And so really my question lies around, I guess, knowing and respecting those different styles and different personality traits within a team. What are your thoughts on that?
Critical. Amos, absolutely critical. I mean, it's just I have a friend and a mentor, Rich Michaels. And when he was the one who really, really showed me in depth what the disc was all about and everything else. And he was telling me, he said, when you do the disc activity and you're having them they're at the flip charts answering, the discussion questions and everything else. He said, Ron, you know what you should do? And I was like, what, Rich? And I knew he was going to be funny. He was like, step back and watch people be themselves.
Yep.
And just step back, watch the D's. As soon as you give the assignment, for the most part, they are headed right toward the flip chart. Okay, who's going to take question number one? This is what our answer is. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, fine. The I's, same thing. Let's go. They're telling stories to each other and they're laughing and everything. The steadies are still at the table talking things through, and the C's are doing the same thing. The C flip chart is usually incredibly organized. Question number one, A, B. And again, I will sit there and I'll talk to some of the other groups. And I was like, look at everybody being themselves. Just look. And I said, I'll look at them and say, hey, you know what? Guys, I gave you 20 minutes for this activity, talking to the D's and the I's, the fast-paced people. You were done in 10 minutes. Is there anything wrong that the other groups are not done yet? And at first, you could see that they were almost ready to say, yeah, they should be. Oh, no, wait a minute. They're just being themselves. The deadline is the deadline. I was like, that's exactly right.
Yep.
The deadline is the deadline. And if they finish at 19 minutes and 58 seconds, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's an interesting exercise, or, standing back and watching rather to see where they're at. You mentioned the D's, and I just posted something on social media, I think a day or so ago, that basically said that you might be a D if you're invited to lunch by a friend and you offer to drive, or you insist on driving their car.
Yeah.
So as we wrap things up, I have two questions that I ask every guest. The first question is, what is your go-to leadership or business book that you have been using for years that you continually go back to?
There are so many. I think the best one, my go-to is The Advantage. I don't know if you know it or not, written by Patrick Lencioni.
Yes.
I love his work. He talks so much in there about the need for a vision statement and a mission for an organization, and also how to prioritize the things that need to get done, who needs to be doing what. And I love it. That is probably, if I have to pick one, that's my go-to.
Awesome. And the last question is, in today's world, as things are changing constantly, we get a new piece of technology every 10 minutes, it feels like. What is your favorite, best piece of technology that you use today?
Probably just the calendar on my phone helps me to stay organized.
Okay.
It just does. I'm not a big technology guy. I never have been. And again, going back, Amos, to what we were talking about earlier, I know that about myself.
Yes.
I'm not real strong technically. I never have been. I'm never going to be. I use it. Of course I do. Not as extensively as I could. I'm not going to say as extensively as I should, because it's not something with which I'm particularly comfortable. And it's also just not something that I think would help me. I know myself. I need to write things down. I need that physical act of writing. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes. And in all fairness, when I was asked the question, my answer was pen and paper. That's my favorite piece of technology. And the person, said, well, that's not a piece of technology. I said it was at one time, but I'm very much the same way. Even my calendar, I have a method which we're going to do a later podcast about, but I go through that entire method on pen and paper. And I do at the end of that method enter my appointments into my digital calendar and, of course, my to-dos into a digital to-do list. But that's more just from ease or convenience for myself so that it's available wherever I'm at. Well, Ron, thank you so much for taking time to spend with us and our listeners today. We appreciate it. It was great information. And we'll be thinking about you in 2 weeks and 6 days, making sure you had your hotel reservations made.
Amos, thank you. I appreciate your time. It was great to be here.
Absolutely. And until next time, don't forget to check us out on social media and our website. And we'll check the show notes out under the show. We'll have some links to Ron's information and social media and some other links possibly down there as well for some of the books and some of the things that we mentioned and talked about throughout the podcast. So until next time, have a great week. Thanks.